President and CEO of North Carolina Theater, which has been proudly producing professional theater and education programming for over 36 years. On behalf of North Carolina Theater, welcome to All In, Community Conversations, a digital series examining theater through the lens of community, diversity, equity, and inclusion, presented by PNC. In this series, we are taking a step off the stage and into the audience and community, where we invite you to come all in with us. We are examining the heart of our work, the great themes behind the stories we tell, and connecting these themes directly to communities right here in Raleigh who are wrestling with these relevant ideas with a shared hope of creating a better society. Through this series of community conversations, we'll join with members of various Raleigh area communities to examine the themes of shows that had together formed our 2019-2020 season. Each show, those we produced and those we were forced to cancel due to COVID-19, examined and celebrated themes of family, acceptance, and fighting for a cause, themes that we perceive are central values for North Carolinians, even as each of us here might express these in our own unique way. During this episode, our host, Alison Staples, a student from our North Carolina Theater Conservatory, will lead today's dialogue, Living on the Edge of Change, with an engaging group of people around some of the themes from our planned production of Benj Pasek and Justin Paul's musical song cycle, Edges. Alison, take it away.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Hello and welcome to today's community conversation, Living on the Edge of Change. I'm Alison Staples, a high school junior at Wake Forest High School. I've been studying theater at the North Carolina Theater Conservatory for 3 years, and I hope to pursue a career in theater. I'm excited to dive into today's discussion about themes related to the show Edges, which unfortunately North Carolina Theater was unable to produce this year due to COVID-19. But the themes of the show are as relevant as ever, as its songs reflect universal issues of love, identity, relationships, and meaning when at the precipice of change. The award-winning songwriting team of Benj Pasek and Justin Paul co-created the show when they were facing change as college students grappling with the challenges and rewards of adulthood. The duo has gone on to win the heart of Broadway and Hollywood, creating work like Dear Evan Hansen and The Greatest Showman. The honesty, introspection, and charm that fills the songs from Edges with heart and humanity have become a hallmark of these great artists, and we can expect much more from them to come. Let's hear from Aaron Simon Gross, a director and actor who's best known for his role in Broadway's 13 the Musical. Aaron had already put in place many of the critical plans for Edges just before we had to cancel the production due to COVID. Aaron, please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Aaron Simon Gross.
Hi, Aaron. So welcome to All In. We are very, very excited to have you. And my first question is, how long have you been working in the theater?
I have been working in the theater for, I want to say 15 years.
Wow, 15 years. And so what is your current job in the theater as a young professional?
My job is I'm a director.
Amazing. So can you please talk about Edges and what your overall vision for this show was?
Yeah, so Edges isn't a traditional book musical. It's a collection of songs that are thematically linked, and in a writer's note at the beginning of the licensed version, the writers, Pasek and Paul, who were even younger than I am when they wrote it, encouraged the people involved with the production to take these songs and basically have a field day with them, look at what they mean to you, and arrange them accordingly. And I was interested in taking this ostensibly super abstract world made up of totally disparate moments and relationships and looking at it as a story of finding a way away from the habits and cycles in the day-to-day that get in the way of our connecting in a meaningful way, in a full, rich, deep way to the people in our lives. Almost like an exorcism away from that. And a journey into what a fuller, more connected, more vulnerable space with the people we love could be like, but also one that it's terrifying and gorgeous and vast in its possibilities.
Yeah, absolutely. So could you give a brief synopsis of the musical and what you think are the most important themes of the show and why they're important right now?
Yeah, I think that just given the facts that these songs were written, that the songs were written in the first decade of this century, and social media was really actively becoming a constant part of daily life, they are largely interested in what effect that has on our relationships, and for reasons that are probably straddling the line between obvious and audacious to state. I've been thinking more than ever about what it means to connect to people we're far away from or close to but feel like we have to be far away from,
Yeah.
and what effect that can have on our sanity and mental health and just daily happiness. And I don't know if the play seeks to answer what to do with that, but I think that, at least for me, it sets me up to and provides a space in which the right questions are asked to help me, to hold my hand in guiding me towards finding my own way, personally, towards what perhaps my answer to those questions could be. And for that, I'm grateful. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense, and you worded it beautifully. We're so happy that Aaron could join us for today's episode of All In, and I just wanted to say thank you to Aaron for joining us and sharing your thoughts about edges.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, we're looking forward to a great conversation with a series of questions surrounding this theme of living on the edge of change. We have an amazing panel I'd love to introduce. Joining us, we have Maggie Kane, Cameron Wade, Maya Bryant, and Brooke Powers. Hello, everyone. Would you please take a moment to introduce yourselves?
Sure. Hey, my name is Maggie Kane. I'm the executive director and founder of A Place at the Table. We are a pay what you can nonprofit restaurant in downtown Raleigh. It's so good to be with y'all.
Amazing. We're so happy that you're here. Maya, you can go next.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Maya Bryant, and I am currently Miss Dunn 2020. I'll be competing for the title of Miss North Carolina in June 2021. My platform is Arts at the Core, so it's all about integrating arts in our schools and in our lives, and I'm super excited to be here.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Cameron, go ahead.
Thanks, Alison. My name is Cameron Wade, and I am a drama therapist, an arts educator, and a therapeutic theater researcher and practitioner. And I'm also still a musical theater performer, and just so thrilled for this opportunity to connect with all of you.
Great. I'm so happy that you're here as well. And finally, Brooke, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Brooke Powers with Your CenterPeace, and where we believe in healthy marriages and whole families. And we provide marriage mentoring and marriage enrichment webinars for anybody who's interested in just bringing the relationship to the next level.
Amazing. So I'm so glad that we're all here, and I'm just going to start asking my questions, and I can call on you so you can answer, or we can just have a conversation. But I do want everyone to answer. And okay, I'll just get started. So Edges the Musical questions the idea of choices that we make when we're on the brink of adulthood. And what does it mean to you as an adult to kind of go through this time, especially since it's so difficult with a pandemic, coupled with a society questioning our cultural responsibilities? And Maggie, if you want to start.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I apologize in advance for my face glowing. The sun is beating at a really not cool place right now, or my squinting. So again, thank you for that question. Being an adult, am I actually an adult? Is that real? No, I have known that for quite some time, but it hit me in COVID when COVID hit a few months ago, and everyone was looking to me for the answers. It hit me that, wow, I don't have anyone else to make these decisions for me, right? I am responsible for this large organization, this staff of 15 to 20 people. They need me to come up with the answers. And so it just hit me in that moment, like, whoa, I don't have someone I can call on to come up with these answers. And so it just means that I have to take responsibility for what I've created, for my life, for my team of people that I walk in every day and promise that I am going to take care of them. We as adults are responsible for our community at large. So with a pandemic like this, we're responsible for the things that we do and the things that we take part in every day. And there are consequences to those things too. For example, I wanted to go to DC for a large march a few months ago, and I realized I can't do that, because if I do that and I bring back illness or sickness, right, then that there are consequences to the things that I decide to do. And so for me, being an adult is just looking out for the people around you and the larger community, and realizing that you have to do that, and that's okay. So yeah, thank you. I'll pass it off.
Yeah, thank you so much for that answer. I love your idea of just, having responsibility. And that's something that I haven't really understood yet as a teenager. But
why you have it.
Exactly. Thank you. Yeah, so anyone else can answer that question as well. Maya, go ahead. Yeah.
I'll go next. I think it's so interesting because as I have grown up, being an adult has always frightened me. I was never that kid that was ready to move out and leave and be this adult, because it always made me afraid, because I thought that being an adult meant having it all figured out. And I think it's such a misconception, because nobody has it all figured out. And in the midst of the past 8 months and our world and our country changing and our community changing, I think I've realized, going back on what you said too, where I'm responsible for my change, for the things that I do, but I'm also allowed to make mistakes. I don't have to have it all figured out. And I think it's so important that as adults, as community members, that we are able to say, maybe I don't understand it all right now. Maybe I don't have the right answers. And that's okay. And I think it's so important. I taught my first college course this past semester. And it's okay to be in front of a classroom and say, I don't know the answer, but I'm going to help you find that answer. I don't have to know all the answers. So I think that's something I've truly learned about being an adult over the past 8 months.
To piggyback off of what you're saying, Maya, I think something that this pandemic has taught me is that it's okay to take space. So it's okay to do the self-care, which is a term that I did not subscribe to before this pandemic, but I wish I would have as a young adult or even a teenager, to give myself that space and like to really focus on showing up as the best version that I can for the people around me, the people that I love and the people that I serve and the people that volunteer with me. Because if I'm out of energy or not in a good place, it's really going to impact my relationships. So what this pandemic has really shown is like, wow, slowing down is okay. The pandemic and things that are happening in our community maybe are not okay. But in order for me to do my very best and be the best person that I can be, like I have to do the internal work first, because even in a relationship and a marriage, like my spouse is not going to help me be a better version of myself, because when two broken people come together, you have a broken relationship. So that is one thing that we had to take space to really work on ourselves so that we can show up and be the best version of us.
That is so. I'm so excited by listening to how everybody's responses sort of fit into this mosaic of adulting, and what everybody's responses have made me think about as well are sort of this capacity that the role of the adult has to hold contradictions. Like, how does the adult be okay when things aren't okay? How do we take responsibility and say, I don't know? And the role of the adult is one that can hold these contradictions. And I think when we live in a time where contradiction is the air that we're breathing and the waters that we're swimming in, that that taking the space to care for ourselves, care for the people around us, and that space is what allows us and enables us to hold all that change and all those contradictions. And I also think there's an opportunity in that caring to play, and that even as adults, knowing that if we lose touch with our inner child that can experience joy and play every day, like the more we're able to give that child self space too, that we'll actually be taking better care of ourselves and better care of the folks around us as well.
And I also want to tag on that no adult looks the same, right? So your adulthood doesn't need to look the same as your best friend. I think that's crucial. I think society tells us what an adult looks like or what you're supposed to grow up and be and do, but it's not true. You follow your own path. I have a twin sister. She followed a completely different path than me. But it doesn't mean that we can't still be friends, be close, right? So you have to follow your own path and know, don't listen to what society says that you have to do.
Yeah, and I think now it's even harder, and now I feel like a true adult when I say that, but teenagers now have to grow up with this societal standards. So I'm so used to looking on Instagram and comparing my real life to others' highlight reel. And so I think that's a super important point. And something I've been saying the past couple of months is I'm only going to entertain things that spark joy. And so that's professionally, that's personally, that's in relationships, where if these things don't spark joy, and it started off as a joke where like, I need things that spark joy, but truly, I cannot be in an environment, I cannot be in friendships or relationships if they don't spark joy, because if I'm not showing up as the best person, I'm not projecting that joy. I can't be the light in some of our darkest times. And I think that's so important to know that you have control. And that's something I've definitely learned, that I am in control, that I can leave a situation, I can leave a relationship if it doesn't spark me joy.
Yeah. I just want to say how each of your answers spoke to me in different ways and like comforted me in a way, because exactly what Maya was saying about how like she didn't want to grow up and she was like, that's me. I feel very comfortable with my life and who I am, and I feel like this quarantine has like helped me become that. So I'm almost more scared to like leave that. And so it's very comforting to hear from each of you who are successful in your own way. And yeah, I think that's incredible.
But yeah, I think we just have to throw away that idea of growing up means having it all figured out. I'm going to tell myself, today I had a busy day, and my mom went and got my oil change and filled my tank up with gas. Like,
girl, yes.
Do it by myself. Shout out to my mom. But I don't have to do it by myself. And being an adult, I thought was this idea of now I'm thrown to the wolves and I have to do it by myself. And that's not what it is. It's coming into your own, continuing to come into your own. And if we all haven't done that in the past 8 months, no matter what our age is, then we've missed the mark. We've truly missed the mark on this year.
And to Maya's point, lean on people, whether it's your parents, whether it's a friend, whether it's a mentor, lean on people. People want to help. People definitely want to help young people. And so lean on people around you. We're there to help and we want to. And so I think that that's such a good point. We're not meant to do this on our own at all, this thing called life. And it just makes life so much better too when you do it alongside other folks. But Maya, that was awesome. Thank you for that.
Yeah, those are all really great points, and kind of piggybacking off of that, and I'll get to the next question next. But I just think it's so easy to like feel alone when you're, especially in a situation like this. And I think it's interesting that all of your answers kind of had something to do with like, sitting back and looking at your relationships with other people and, bettering yourself, even though it can feel like a time where we're alone, we're really not. And even when you are alone, you're not alone, and so that's also really comforting and just a great point. So the next question that I have is, the characters and Edges yearn to create meaningful relationships. but might not have it all figured out yet. So how do we create and build community when we don't share the same space? And feel free, anyone can answer whatever comes into
The
you.
first part of that question really spoke to me with how can we have deep, meaningful relationships? And I think it really starts, again, I guess going back to what Maya was saying and what I said previously is really being self-aware, knowing where you're at, how you're feeling so that you're not reactive and you're showing up in your relationships in the best place possible. Being proactive, because relationships are work, right? I mean, Maya had to share with her mom that she kind of needed help, and her mom showed up and served. And we can't always be takers, so we have to be ready to give too. And so being resilient, and I think that's something that a lot of people are experiencing and maybe struggling with in this pandemic, is their level of resiliency, because being inflexible in a relationship, oh my gosh, it will ruin your relationship if you have to have your way all the time. So those are just a few things that I found that in adult relationships, it's like my best relationships. And I only have like 3 really, really close people that are like my inner circle, you know, and then I have my highlight reel that I might share some highs and lows with outside of that. But to get your 3 people and invest heavily in them and look for them to invest in you, instead of trying to have people pleaser. That was when I was a teenager, trying to be friends with everybody and not going deep with anybody. So that is one sweet thing that being an adult has taught me is a few really great friends make all the difference in the world, and you can't make everybody happy.
Yeah, and I think for sure. You know, in the beginning of the pandemic, I hated the term social distancing because I figured that we didn't have to social distance. We just had to physically distance from each other. And I tuned in more to friends, to colleagues who I knew, had my back. I had friends who were on national tours, who were performing in New York, and in the blink of an eye, lost everything, had to move back home. And we've talked to each other more in the past 8 months than I think we have in our entire friendship, because we're doing these weekly check-ins. I called a friend last night and I was like, I'm literally just calling to say, how is your heart? How are you doing? What's going on? This is month 8 and we don't know where the end is in sight. And I think I had to chime in and lean into those relationships I'm a super extrovert. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do if I can't leave my house, but I had to lean in on friends. And I think you're right. I had to figure out who was truly there for me. I didn't need to be everybody's friend, but who were the people who were going to have my back in the midst of our darkest hour.
Mm-hmm. And I think that there's an invitation now to speak to and just kind of thinking about both what you've said, Maya, and what you've said, Brooke. I think that there's an invitation now to think about and redefine what it means to connect.
Yeah.
Does it mean just because people are sharing the same space, are they really connecting? Just because a group of people share something in common, are they really a community? What does community really mean? And what does it mean to build it with intention? And I just think that there is a really exquisite chance that we have across our fields to think about who is in community with us. What does it mean? And what are the values that are driving our community? Who is included and who is not? Mm-hmm. Right? And why? And how do we widen our circles, not to just think of community as this same physical proximity, but including people in a spirit and in an energy of the values that we share that define our community, and which is not defined. Yeah, go.
Yeah, and being more intentional. I think
Yes.
because when you were saying, how many times have we connected with people, but when we're really connecting in that same space, how many times have we gone out to dinner with people and been on our phones the entire time?
That's right.
So now we're being more intentional about those connections, because I think also something I've had to tune into is, before we were forced to stay, at home, it was, I'm too busy, I'm moving, I'm doing this, I have this, my schedule is full. Well, now we don't have any excuses anymore. So how do we intentionally tune into these relationships is going to be the next challenge.
I will say, I'll add to that. I love that. Spirit hands. I will say though, it is hard, and as someone who our mission at A Place at the Table is community. That is the mission. It's community and good food for all, regardless of means. So we bring so many people here to eat good food and get to know each other and build community, doing dishes together or running food. And that's our main mission. And so for that to be cut cold turkey for so many of our folks has been just really devastating to see. And it's the truth. If you are lonely and listening to this, you are not alone in that. There are so many folks who are craving community and struggling right now. And so I don't have the answers, because it really is hard. And I think it's going to take a long time for some people to find community, because people are just really lonely. And so, I mean, anyone who is feeling that way, I really encourage you to be outside. I think first and foremost, nature is a game changer. Bundle up, wear 5-6 layers, it doesn't matter. Call people, similarly to what the three of them are saying. Call your people. Find groups. If you don't have any people, that's okay. Find groups. We're so fortunate with the internet that there are a ton of groups you can join and be a part of. If you like a game, if you like a book club, there are a lot of things that you can be a part of on the internet. But I think, and even support groups. They're NAMI Wake County, which is a group. It's the National Association of Mental Illness, or Alliance, yikes, of Mental Illness. They have support groups online that where people really who are struggling can join, and not feel ashamed of that, right? It's a group to connect and be a part of. I think this is a really hard time, and I don't want to undermine it. I just want to state that you are not alone in being lonely. There are so many of us that feel that way too.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And a follow-up question that I have is, all of you have worked, or in your profession, you are around people, you work with people. So how has this transition to online or virtual kind of affected you or your job?
Yeah, we have not closed. We're still open as a cafe. We're doing curbside. So we get to see people on the curb. I consider myself super fortunate to do that. But it is hard to have all of the meetings online and to connect that way. Like Maya said earlier, I have a lot more phone calls. I check in with lots of people on the phone more often. So it is hard. My heart's been broken a little bit. I have not been able to see my family at all, which is pretty sad. And so my sister had a baby. My mom is in her 70s, and so I have not been able to connect with my family during this time. So again, if anyone is in the same boat, I feel you. I get it. It's really hard, but thank God for FaceTime.
Yes, for sure. Through pageantry, what we do is go out into the community and have that face-to-face interaction with others. And with my platform being the arts, it was really hard for me at first, if I'm being completely honest. My mom has worked at a theater for my entire life. And it's really hard when this is super personal to you. Like I said, friends were working in the business who are, unemployed for we don't know how much longer. And so I kind of took a pause. And at first I was like, this is not okay, that I don't have the answer. And that's where I learned that it's okay for me to step back and not have the answer, and then figure out how to, be this light. And so I've done a lot of virtual things, met a lot of cool people through the internet. I've been doing interviews every Monday with an artist from across the country. So I've been able to connect with a lot of interesting and fun people. With my job, like I said, I work in development. So that didn't stop. We still had to fundraise, but also I was teaching this semester as well. So we started school in August. normal. It was just everyone had to wear a mask. We were making sure there weren't that many students in the classroom. And then 3 weeks before the end of the semester, we went entirely virtual. And that was the most interesting experience that I have had to date. It's hard. It is hard to connect with students, through a screen. It's really hard to build those connections. And so just being creative. One thing I love about artists is that artists are creative, and this has allowed us to stretch more than ever. And so I just hope that we, on the other side of this, because we will get through this, that on the other side of this, we take the skills that we've learned over the past couple of months.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I don't know if Brooke shares this experience too, but the folks who I see privately as a therapist, everybody's moved to telehealth and having sessions via a virtual platform. And as a drama therapist, just like it is for everybody who relies on that interactive yumminess, right, to drive the work, it's like learning a new language. I mean, it is learning a new language. It's learning not just like how to actually technically navigate this new world of like doo-doo-doo and beeps on boops, but for those of us who aren't good at the tech side, that's a challenge. And also learning a new language of face to screen to face to screen. And I could not agree more with what Maya said about necessity being the mother of invention. And again, as artists and as people who are creative folks, we know that like when things get tough, that's when our fire can ignite and real shifting, like real exciting, creative, seismic shifts can happen. And then it's up to us to take those learnings and move forward with them because this can either be the biggest obstacle that we've all had to face, and it will be that, and it can also be the biggest opportunity any of us have had to dig deeper than we ever have into our practice, into our respective practices. So yeah.
And it's okay for it to be both.
Yes, indeed.
I'm super afraid of all of the New Year's resolution posts. I'm so afraid for them because everyone's going to say that this was the worst year ever. And this year has been tough, no doubt. We are all struggling. And I'm more comfortable now than ever in my life to say that I have struggled through this time as well. But man, like what an opportunity we've had. And I just hope that like in the next 30 days, at the end of December, that it's not lost, that we took this opportunity and we learned from this incredible hardship.
And I was just going to do a little shout out for those that are introverted, that just to normalize your situation too. So if you're hearing this and you're going, gosh, should I feel guilty because being at home has kind of been nice and not commuting has kind of been nice and not doing the bigger events has kind of been nice, that's okay, and embrace that. It's who you are, and maybe you've had this time to recharge a little bit more than what your typical schedule allows you to do. So for us, our marriage mentors were incredibly resourceful. Some of them were already using FaceTime to do mentoring sessions. We found a huge increase in vulnerability for our couples because here they are in the comfort of their home. They're able to still lay it all out on the line. I mean, some of them who are engaged are in different parts of the world and they're meeting over the screen, so they're actually able to see their significant other's face and facial expressions versus being side by side. So talk about movements there. It's been pretty incredible in that regard for mentoring sessions too. Instead of having to wait a month to meet with their mentor couple, they were able to meet back to back, like week to week, and really process through their growth work together. We give them homework. We call it growth work. But they're able to do that on their own and have more time to digest the material and talk together. And so in a way, that was huge for our organization because we worked with a whole lot of couples in March and April that were struggling. And then in June, we were able to roll out a resource that was an incredible amount of work. But because not having to commute and having more time in our schedule, we were able to put the work in and pull this timeline off for this resource, marriagesupport.today, for any of you who are interested, a website full of articles and videos, all to help you at any stage in your relationship. So it's definitely a really hard year, but some sweet silver linings too, especially for those that needed some more time together and enjoy the quiet life.
Yeah, I love that. I think that it's amazing that, this pandemic that has pushed people physically apart has ultimately brought them closer together in many ways. And actually, I kind of made a connection to what you were saying, Maya, because as a student, on the side of all virtual school, I have my thoughts and opinions, but it's just interesting to hear your perspective as a teacher and teaching, especially for your first time. That it's unfortunate that you had to teach for the first time in this situation, but it's great to hear your perspective as a student as well. So
I'm ready for any. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, okay, I can just ask another question. So following up on that, how does this affect other people in the community who may not have access to Wi-Fi or computers, switching to mostly virtual?
It affects them. As someone who works with a lot of people who don't have access, it's pretty devastating. Yeah, it's sad. We opened on Thanksgiving Day. I know that Thanksgiving's one of those holidays, any holiday, that everything shut down, and if you have nowhere to go and no people, no family, then you're just pretty lonely. And so we open on Thanksgiving, and the amount of people that came through just needing to connect. A lot of people didn't even want the food; they just wanted to connect and say hi and keep going. So it really does. It's pretty sad. So there's no good answer on that. It's just hard. So you have to find people in person, outside, or in where you live, where you stay, connect with.
Definitely. Absolutely. If anyone else wants to
Completely agree.
elaborate, they can.
Yeah, I was just saying I completely agree. That was one of my biggest struggles when just as a community member, I obviously don't have children, so I didn't have a huge stakeholder in when we were talking about children returning back to school or not. But it was super hard for me because I said, what about those students who their only meal comes from school? What about those students who don't have that attention at home where their parents can stay and help them with their work while they're on their Zoom, or help them with that, or they don't have Wi-Fi connection. And I think this year has made us realize the disconnect between our communities, and I hope allowed us to tune in to come together more, because we have to lean on each other if we're going to get through anything. If we're going to move forward as a country, as a society, as a world, we're going to have to lean in on each other, because there is a huge disconnect. Everyone does not start on that even playing field. Everyone doesn't get to say, okay, well, I have my MacBook home, so I can do home. That's not how it works for everybody. And so that is where I struggled a lot with figuring out how do we help those students who don't have Wi-Fi? How do we help students who parents still have to go to work and aren't able to stay at home by themselves? And so it's been hard to watch that as well. But I think, again, we have to learn from it. We have to learn how we can come together through this.
And until you know something, you just don't know, right? So the hope is that now we know, our eyes are opened, and that we can continue to move forward and connect, and just know that other people need us, and we need to come together. So yeah, that's good.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a Maya Angelou quote that says, "When you know better, you do better." And so after this year, I hope we know better. There's no excuse. And so I hope that we can do better.
Yeah, Absolutely. So in the show Edges, there's a theme of taking a risk and overcoming fear. And so right now, every individual person is kind of assessing risks that we haven't had to before when it comes to managing, life through the pandemic. So how are we recognizing these personal decisions and how they might conflict with our families and friends' views of certain aspects of, the pandemic or anything else going on in society?
Yeah, that's a really tough one because you could have a family of four and have polar opposites within that family of four. And anxiety levels are really, really high right now. And so I think just to be the best human that we can be is to recognize and sit with those people who are really anxious through this. Even if you may be more liberal in the health of yourself or your family, and not really grasp where they're coming from, but just to allow them their feelings and to sit with them while they're processing through those feelings. A lot of us will want to justify where we stand and why we're doing what we're doing is okay, and it really diminishes the other person's space. And so I recognize that even like if in the neighborhood, some people want like 20 feet of distance where others are like, yeah, come on over, have a cup of tea. So it's very different. And so, we're all individuals. We all have our own feelings. We all have our own fears. And just to recognize what's going on inside and recognize that other people could be totally different than what we're feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually kind of have a question because the show Edges, the main kind of theme wedged throughout is being on the edge of something, whether that's change or a new relationship, love, or whatever it means to you. So my question is, if there has been a point in your life, and it would be, perfect if it was during this quarantine, that you felt on the edge of something, what was that and how did that kind of affect you?
I think for me, it goes back to bringing joy, sparking joy. So I recently left a job that didn't spark joy anymore. And if you would have asked me 8 months ago if I would leave a job in the midst of a global pandemic, I would have probably laughed at you and had an anxiety attack. Like type A Maya doesn't do that. But figuring out what's really important. And when you started asking your question, Alison, I was like, aren't we always at the edge of something? Like shouldn't we always be on the edge of dreaming, of doing, of conjuring up something? Someone said this years ago, and it's always stuck with me. I can't remember exactly who said it, but it's that I never want to feel that my best day has happened. I always want to be continuing to grow and that figuring out that my best day is still yet to come, because then I'm growing, I'm achieving, I'm accomplishing. And even in that stillness, I feel that now, where I never want to feel like, oh, I've done my best, where I can learn a lot and the magic can happen in the stillness as well. And before this pandemic, I didn't realize that, where I thought if I was being still, I was being unproductive. But so much magic can happen in our stillness and in our thought process too. So I like to think that I'm always on the edge of the next big thing.
I love that, Maya. And when you were speaking to that, it reminded me of this maxim in both yoga and meditation that is about meet your edge and soften. Right? That edges are good, right? That while they're sharp and can be scary, that it's also exciting. There's potency there. There's magic, like you said. Yeah. And what I think that our challenge in any growth, through any change, in any transition, is to and like you said, Brooke, to be right there with it, right? To be able to have to summon up our courage and be right there on our edge and soften, and know that somehow if we can slow down and just be right there and be present in stillness, and with intention right there at our edge, that we can meet it and soften.
I love that. I love what you said too. It's like, be still, sit in the uncertainty, and dream big. Because I just remember, like, when this nonprofit came about, it was through hours and hours of just being still and journaling and going, okay, what is my purpose in this life? Really, what is it? And my purpose is to strengthen marriages and families everywhere. And how do I do that? And it was such a beautiful dream space. Like, I spent 3 months before I even uttered a word to my core of people, and then they encouraged me on. And then, I've got this introvert who's terrified of speaking in public, terrified. And now I'm like presenting to all these CEOs and trying to get backing to do this vision. And so it's that time when you can sit and be still and in the uncertainty of what you're doing in your life. And young adults, like, gosh, I love that time, because the world is yours. And it is scary and it's uncertain and it's beautiful, and just enjoy that beautiful place.
And it's also I think when is the time they have hit rock bottom during this time, it's also okay to not be okay. Last week I hit rock bottom. I'm talking, I cried every day. If anyone asked me one question of how you're doing, I just started bawling. I had to start prefacing people in my combos. I had to start saying, please just don't ask me how I'm doing, in like a very nice way, because I knew that if they did, I would just start bawling. And that lasted for about a week, and I have never been like that ever. And so it's okay to not be okay. And what you do is you call your people, find those humans that help you, and you can lean in on them, just like the three of us have talked about, or the three of you have talked about. You just lean on people to help you get out of that. It is okay to not be okay. It's okay to go to therapy. It's okay to, find self-care that we've all been saying. And this is not, it is not easy. None of this is easy. And so I think we really have to just be okay with it not being okay sometimes.
Yeah, well, thank you guys so much for your answers. We are about out of time. I'm very sad because I really have enjoyed listening to you all. And yeah, I love this idea of being on the edge, because I feel like I'm on the edge myself of something. So yeah, thank you so much for being here and being a part of this and sharing yourself. And yeah, it's been amazing.
Thank you, Alison, for that engaging discussion. It makes me so excited about the day when we might once again be able to produce Edges at North Carolina Theater. Our next episode of All In Community Conversations will feature Sarah Bach and the sound of music. We hope the result of connecting our thoughtful young people with leaders around ideas generated by our shows will be dynamic and engaging, and can be of value to the participants, their communities, and hopefully inspire you. I'm Elizabeth Doran, President and CEO of North Carolina Theater, and I thank you for coming all in with us. Please be sure to check out all of our digital offerings, subscribe to our social media pages, and please stay in touch and stay healthy.